Hackers have a reputation of being villains in the shadows, sitting behind their computer screens, participating in digital crimes that can cost their victims millions. Usually, following the money is the best way to catch these nerdy nuisances. So of course, with the advent of cryptocurrency, you can bet these criminals want ransoms paid in the untraceable Bitcoin. Or is it untraceable? We have quite a wild story for you today, because the FBI was indeed able to retrieve a $2.3 million payout in Bitcoin that Colonial Pipeline had paid to ransomware hackers. And they solved the case. We've got the full story right here, so don't you dare close that laptop. So what exactly happened here? Who are the hackers in question? And who was their target? The criminal group responsible was known as Darkside, a notorious group of computer whizzes that unfortunately used their knowledge for crime. After years of cyber attacks, they finally were caught by the FBI when they targeted Colonial Pipeline. What exactly did they do? Well, get this. On May 7th, 2021, Colonial Pipeline, which is the operator of one of the United States' largest fuel pipelines, publicly stated they had been the victim of a ransomware attack. This means that a group of cyber criminals, in this case it was Darkside, were holding private data as hostage and had placed a lock on the computer systems until a ransom is paid. Colonial Pipeline responded in the only way they knew how. They shut down their fuel pipeline. This protective measure, unfortunately, also meant that precious jet fuel and gasoline that is used by the Atlantic coast was now severely limited. After all, Colonial Pipeline delivers half of all the jet fuel and gasoline used by the entire Atlantic coast. This was a big deal, folks. Air travel was disrupted, and drivers all along the East Coast rushed to gas stations in a panic so they could fuel up before it was too late. How much did prices rise? By nearly 2.5%. In fact, average gas prices in the US were at around $2.20 in January of 2021. And by May, when the attacks occurred, that number was at nearly $3. Yikes. So what did Colonial Pipeline do next? The only thing they could do. They paid the ransom. They paid 75 Bitcoin, which at the time was just about the equivalent of $5 million. Colonial Pipeline was able to get fuel and gas flowing again. But this is hardly the end of the story. This is where things get a bit interesting. See, we all know that one of the appeals of cryptocurrency is that it is a decentralized form of money. Basically, it's not run by any government, it's cash that can't be inflated, and it can be paid anonymously from person to person by sending it to the receiver's digital wallet. But get this, the FBI was indeed able to track Darkside's Bitcoin, and it led to their downfall. While there has been no official statement on the tactics used, and frankly, it's because the FBI might want to use the same tactic again one day, here's the most likely way that the FBI was able to achieve the impossible. Darkside, for all their hacker smarts, naively used a payment server to collect the funds. As in, they used a centralized means of getting their Bitcoin. Thus, all it took was the FBI to access the server where the hackers stored their private key information, and bam, they could easily find where the Bitcoin had gone, and even learn what other amounts of Bitcoin had been received. And in fact, there had been a lot of Bitcoin that had been received since the server had been opened. And that number was to the tune of $17.5 million total from 21 Bitcoin wallets. Sounds like Darkside had been quite busy. So this means there's quite a conundrum here, right? After all, crypto is supposed to be untraceable, a shadowy form of digital dollars that the government can't track, right? Well, check out this statement from Jesse Spiro, Global Head of Policy for Chainalysis, which is a company that provides blockchain forensic and investigative services to private sector companies. They said because these transactional organized criminal groups are facilitating these payments in cryptocurrency, and because of the transparency and traceability that cryptocurrency provides, you can actually more effectively follow the money and potentially mitigate and arrest illicit activity within this ecosystem. than you can with traditional finance and fiat currencies and payments. Seems crypto is not really as blind to the government as we all thought. But before you start thinking that Bitcoin wasn't working as intended and is now completely monitored by Uncle Sam, we want to point out that it wasn't Bitcoin itself that was faulty here. Darkside were the ones that messed up, and messed up big time. They foolishly stored their private keys in a way that was rather easy to access for the FBI. This is why many folks will hold their private keys directly and will take their crypto offline and put it in cold storage. That way their digital dollars are completely out of reach of the state. But that isn't what Darkside did. And now, they are no more. The criminal group released a statement that they were shutting down due to pressure from the United States government. And U.S. law enforcement officials stated they were able to recover a massive $2.3 million in Bitcoin that was illegally paid to Darkside. So, Darkside was stopped, the FBI walked away as heroes, and fuel and gas distribution was returned to normal. But what is the aftermath of this scenario? What does this mean for Bitcoin? Can people still trust it? Or is this the beginning of the end? Believe it or not, Chris Giancarlo, the former chairman of the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission, believes that the FBI being able to break into Darkside's crypto wallet is a good sign for cryptocurrency and will even help in the long term as the world moves closer and closer to mass adoption. He stated, "It proves that the Bitcoin blockchain is not a hostile ground for law enforcement. It proves that it is not a perfect tool for criminal activity." There were many that theorized the aftermath of this hack would mean that there would be sweeping regulations and reform by President Joe Biden. But instead, it seems that the president and his team see the ability to find criminals that are paid in cryptocurrency gives them quite a leg up when it comes to capturing them. Basically, it might be easier in some cases to catch criminals that are paid in crypto than with traditional fiat currency. Wow, who would have thought? It all goes to show that no matter what, following the money may be the best way to stop the criminals of the world. And that certainly rings true for cryptocurrency as well. Hey, before we go, we want to leave you with one final fact that is sure to blow your mind, and maybe even leave you scratching your head. There is a common stereotype out there that only criminals use cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. But when you look at the data, there is actually no sign that this is really the case. In fact, Chainalysis has stated that less than 1% of all crypto is used for illicit purposes. Times are changing, and they are changing fast. We will see you next time, right here on The Richest.